Sweet.
What is up, everyone? Divisional weekend's over. So is my season. Man, where do I even start? We'll just start. We'll just start with the first Saturday game, and we'll get to
the best game of the weekend.
To be fair, out of my mind.
To be 100% fair to you and all the Cowboys fans in the world, it could have been worse. I think Sunday night's game was arguably my favorite game of the playoffs so far. And I'm not saying best because a lot of Jags fans would be like, yeah, eat shit, Chargers fan. So I'm not going to say it was the best game of the playoffs so far, but it was my favorite to watch. Cowboys versus Niners. That was on par with like Patriots, Rams, Super Bowl defensive masterclass. That was two teams that were refusing to move any inches. The fact that the score was that high surprised me.
I'll get into it more once we get into it because at this point, we'll get to it. So we'll start with the Chiefs and the Jags. Boy, the Jags really showed up more than I thought they would. Granted, they've been good on this stretch. I just thought the rested Chiefs would have kind of beat them up even harder. I mean, losing Mahomes for, 3 or 4 drives? Do you know how long Mahomes was out for? He came back after the half, right?
Something like that.
I think drives he missed
because he got hurt right before the second quarter turned over, and then he was out there for a little bit working it out, and then eventually he was pulled off the side, went into the back, and then I think he was out until after halftime. So that was 4 or 5 drives, I would say.
Yeah, Henny went 5 for 7 in his stead for 23 yards, a touchdown to Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce was that dude. 14 for 98 and 2 touchdowns. The wide receiver one in Kansas City. If it was ever a question before, it's not a question now that Tyreek Hill has been gone at this point.
Travis Kelce's the wide receiver one in the AFC West right now. I don't think there's a better pass catcher in that division than Travis Kelce. And I don't mean to say that to be like, oh, boo-hoo, we don't have weapons on the Chargers. It's just Travis Kelce, as a receiving threat, is better than anybody else that you could line up against. His size, his hands, his routes, he's the complete package. And he can block pretty decently. He's not the best blocking tight end, but it's been 7 years now of Travis Kelce just being better than everybody else. So, yeah. Wide receiver one's an understatement for this team.
I do like what I saw out of Isaiah Pacheco, though. 12 for 95. Didn't score, but didn't really have to. Probably one of the better games of his season, for sure. And kind of when they needed it the most. Mahomes goes down for a little bit. Mahomes still goes 22 for 30. 195 and 2 touchdowns. So still Patrick Mahomes not making too many mistakes, not turning the ball over. Kind of just the much more experienced team in this situation. They've been here many of times. They're going to the AFC Championship for this 5th straight year. The house money at this point. They have been playing with house money for a little while now. I think even winning the division was house money at that point. But Trevor Lawrence, 24 for 39, not the best completion percentage in the world, but 217, a touchdown, did throw a pick. ETN found the end zone, 10 for 62 and a touchdown. Zay Jones, 5 for 83. Kirk, 7 for 52. Spread the ball around pretty well. The Jags really, obviously, it's the little stupid tidbit of keep your head up. You had a great season. Obviously, everybody wants to win the Super Bowl. But from where they started as the number 1 pick to end your season like this, and after what Urban Meyer put you through last season, I'll fucking take it.
The Jaguars could have literally rolled over in the wild card game and just lost to the Chargers after that first half, and I don't think anybody could have faulted this team. That's not what happened. Jacksonville's season is probably the biggest success, not only in their division, but probably all of the AFC. What they did, it's not equivalent to what the Bengals did last year, but it's akin to the same feeling. Something happened in Jacksonville that I think is tangible and that I think can continue. They've got a great quarterback on a very affordable deal for the next 3 years. They've got their guy in Christian Kirk, who I get at the time, it felt like an overpay, which granted, dollar to cent ratio, he played extremely well for the role that he was given, especially coming off of his years in Arizona where he never fully materialized in that offense. This is a team that has another year of Travis Etienne, another year in the Doug Peterson system, and they're probably getting a top 25 receiver in the game when fully healthy. I'd say even top 18, if I'm being a little more generous. Calvin Ridley at full strength was rivaling Julio Jones before Julio fell off the planet. So you're giving this team that just won their division another weapon, and I think through the draft they're going to be able to add somebody else. And I don't think this team's going to lose a whole lot in free agency. Their biggest guy they might need to re-sign is Evan Ingram, and even then they can retool through free agency or even draft a guy. So, yeah, the Chiefs play with house money, but since Jacksonville beat the Titans in Week 18, they've been playing with house money themselves. KC is the Death Star. I'm not going to talk too much about them. We've seen them. We know what they do. Anything is possible with this team because Andy Reid's a fucking genius. Like, pardon my French, but he just makes things work. He did it with McNabb. He did it with Vic. He did it with Foles for a season. Alex Smith, Chad Henne. You name a quarterback, obviously Mahomes is the best in the league right now, so it elevates the ceiling. But in terms of just the floor of any team in the playoffs right now, regardless of who's under center, they're going to put up points. It might not be 35, but having a guy like Henne to stop any bleeding whenever Mahomes can't go is super important. And I think it's going to be a big thing going into this AFC Championship game. Because no Mahomes at all. I think
to beat the Browns.
No, it was 2 years ago. He had to beat the Browns, like a full quarter against the Browns, and that's important stuff because we saw it in San Francisco this year. Whenever your starter goes down, it's nice to have a backup, and luckily for them, they had a backup to the backup. But I genuinely feel that the 4 best teams are probably left in the playoffs this year. We're going to get more into this Bengals-Bills matchup after we get through the Eagles-Giants. But based upon what I saw this season and based upon what we've seen through the playoffs, I'm really excited for the championship games.
Yeah.
And another
me too,
one more caveat for KC. The last caveat for me from KC. They've got fucking playmakers, dude. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest difference between Jacksonville putting up 20 and KC putting up 27. Because while some teams, they struggle running the ball or they struggle getting the ball into players' hands, you had 2 guys with over 5 receptions, but you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dudes getting the rock on rushes. And out of those 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them actually stand a threat to do something good with the ball. I know Noah Gray didn't gain a yard, but Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, Jerick McKinnon, and Pacheco are playmakers. So I hope Mahomes can go fully next week, but it's really nice seeing the chart of who's getting carries and how they're producing going into this championship game.
Yeah, they have a task ahead of them for sure, especially if Mahomes isn't 100%. Everything runs through Patrick Mahomes, if you already didn't know. Eagles destroyed the Giants. What else do you want me to? Really, I wasn't going to be surprised at any outcome of this matchup. If the Giants upset the Eagles, the Giants would have had to blow out the Eagles for me to have been surprised at the result. If the Giants squeaked it out against the Eagles, it would have made sense. If the Eagles just squeaked it out against the Giants, it would have made sense. And if the Eagles blow out the Giants, it made sense. Talent-wise, the Eagles are just on a different level on both sides of the ball. Honestly, the only thing this game really taught me is that I hate Nick Sirianni. And not even because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, but like he just has the most punchable face in the NFL. Like Oh, dude, it's so obnoxious watching him. And it's like that gif of him like nodding in the face. It's like the dude at the bar who has the worst pickup lines but doesn't take no as an answer. It's like the face that his 7-year-old nephew sees after he gets blown up by Uncle Nick at the family Thanksgiving game. Like, grow up, dude. Like, you were such a product of Howie Roseman building such a better team. I just want Nick Sirianni to lose so bad. And like it really doesn't matter. Does it add that he's the Eagles coach? Sure. I'm supposed to hate the Eagles, but like good lord, just makes me hate him even more. He drives me up a wall. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe anyone watching this is like, yeah, dude, fuck the Dallas fan who gets driven up the wall by our coach because he's jealous. No, I'm jealous that your GM makes way better decisions than mine does.
This is what should have been expected. Everything I said about the Jaguars, I mean it tenfold for the Giants, because at least the Jaguars are talented on offense. The Giants have Saquon Barkley. While Saquon is a better player than Travis Etienne today, I don't think Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence are in the same conversation of starters. Daboll did something this season to unlock stuff out of Daniel Jones. The final step will be getting him professional level weapons. I commend Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins for filling those roles this year. But if you want to win a Super Bowl and you want to be competitive later in the year, you have to have guys that can win in one-on-one coverage. And those two are just not going to do it against Darius Slay and James Bradbury. That secondary in Philadelphia is probably one of the best in football today. They are, aside from San Francisco, probably my favorite defense left in the playoffs, which makes this next matchup extremely exciting. And both of these teams have pretty decent. The Niners' rush defense is better than the Eagles, but the Eagles have pieces that make me believe in their rush defense, which makes some sense. The Giants are going to re-sign Saquon Barkley, and if they do not, he is going to go to a team and make them a lot better. The Giants have to re-sign Daniel Jones at this point. Their pick is too low to get a quarterback of substance. They're going to have to make some trades. They need to figure out how to get some actual weapons outside of the halfback into this offense. Because if they can actually make you believe their play action, or make where you have to actually trust the fact that Daniel Jones will beat you with his arm because he has people that can catch the ball, that's going to unlock something for the offense. I think the defense is here to stay. Dexter Lawrence is a monster. Watching him in the Minnesota game, I was like, they cannot cover this dude. He is just disrupting everything. Kayvon Thibodeau, for all of the on-field antics, making snow angels as Nick Foles got sent to the Shadow Realm. Dude can play. If you had questions about his drive, take him somewhere else. I'm tired of all these pre-draft things saying, like, we don't know where his head is. Well, he proved it this season. It was on the field. Him going at 5 still blows my mind. He went from number 1 to 5 in 2 months. Can't explain it. The Giants are building something here. Brian Daboll is my coach of the year because of what we expected out of New York. Congrats to Nick Sirianni for going 15-3 with the best team in football. Howie Roseman should get coach of the year with the way that this team was assembled. And for everyone talking about the 2020 class being able to be extended once the offseason starts, Jalen Hurts is deserving of an extension. He's not going to get it this offseason. I would be very surprised if they gave him the money this offseason. Because if we're going to be objectively just transparent, out of the quarterbacks in his class, Tua, Burrow, Hurts, Herbert, I'm not wrong in saying that Jalen Hurts has had the most help along the way. I'm not going to say that Hurts is a product of his surroundings, but if they were to give him a massive deal under current construction, the back half of that deal could get really ugly if he leans more to a byproduct of situation. Because yes, he went to Alabama, he went to Oklahoma. He's played with elite talent his entire career. But I'm just saying, whenever you're surrounded with talent, you tend to produce at a higher level.
I mean, so, and the Eagles have been here before. They've had an MVP caliber quarterback.
Well, the Carson Wentz thing is completely different because Carson blew his knee out, and Carson didn't know how to play outside of like breaking the pocket and making throws off platform. Because that was the Carson Wentz thing. Carson would extend plays with his legs, and he was athletic enough to do that. But his mechanics were never that sound in terms of just being able to drop back and throw. His motion's too long. He takes too much time. So what he was successful at in 2017 was improvising, being able to extend plays, find those windows, and make those windows. But now that Carson is athletically no longer who he was, it's far more difficult for him to create windows because his body doesn't allow him to do that. And granted, his situations are worse. He's playing with players that are worse than that 2017 team within reason. But I'm a fan of Hurts. I like all the strives he's made. But he is surrounded with an incredible supporting cast. The line's the best in football right now. A.J. Brown's a top 5 guy, depending on how you skew receiver. Devonta Smith is probably one of the best wide receiver 2s in football. Goddard is out there, finally healthy. And the defense doesn't hemorrhage points. So Philly better hope they can get past SF. Because for me, I think this is Philadelphia's best chance to try and get a bowl on Jalen Hurts' rookie scale deal. Because Dallas has to do something. The Vikings are going to have to do something because they went 13-3. Their division isn't that great. I think Packers are going to continue to take steps back. I think the Lions will be good, but they're not ready to make that step to win a division yet. So, and we've talked about it before, there's no repeat NFC East champions. So the Philadelphia Eagles can't win 15 games next year. So they need to capitalize next week. Because if they can't, the team that's going to beat them apparently has their guy, and they're going to have him for 2 more years than the Eagles do on that rookie scale deal. Because essentially what we're doing in the NFL right now in the NFC is taking rookie scale contracts, creating an absolute unit. Look at the Expendables, that action movie with like Stallone, Willis. You know what I'm talking about? Just the fucking murderer's row of these action stars. That's what Philadelphia and San Francisco are. And San Francisco is not only as talented, but they're built to outlast them just based upon contracts. So this NFC title game is going to be for all the marbles, especially for Philadelphia, because Hurts is only going to get more expensive. Same with every other impact guy on that roster.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you're right. The Eagles are built really well. I just don't know when it's going to catch up with them. And like you said, they're not winning the division next year. I don't make the rules. This is just how it works. It's just how these things go.
Just Sam Howell comes out, Mahomes 2.0. His sophomore year throws 50 touchdowns.
Please, no, dude. Please, God. Ugh, I could not imagine if that were to happen. But, I mean, Kenny Gainwell had 12 carries for 112 yards and a touchdown, man.
Offensive line's help.
They do have the best offensive line in the game, and I don't think that's controversial. I really don't. They have a nuts fucking offensive line, and Jason Kelsey just won't fucking retire. And Lane Johnson's an absolute tank.
The Niners may have the best offensive lineman in football in Trent Williams, but there's not a better assemblage of talent than that Eagles offensive line. It is downright disgusting.
Yeah. And for the Giants, when your leading tackler is Jalen Smith,
it's not ideal.
Maybe time to get a good off the ball linebacker where they can fill a need. And there'll be guys on the market for wide receivers and playmakers. There's plenty of guys on the market they can go out and get, but I don't know how much they have to pay Saquon and Daniel Jones. That's where it's going to come down to, because Daniel Jones is, I feel like, almost going to get Dak Prescott money.
I don't think he's getting Dak Prescott money.
I mean, the way the contracts are these days, I mean, I think Dak's like the 10th highest paid quarterback at this point. And when he first signed his deal, it was the most, was it not?
Well, I'm going to look him up right now. So 2022.
I don't know what Daniel Jones is going to get, but obviously it's going to be a significant amount of money because they really can't go anywhere else. I don't see this team as a team that would target Rodgers, Brady, Garoppolo, or Carr. That's kind of more for the middling teams, and this team showed that it could be a playoff team. with literally no weapons whatsoever. And now you add a couple weapons, they could probably be in the same exact spot they were.
I think Daniel Jones probably takes like a 3 or 4 year deal that's going to average between Kirk Cousins and like Carson Wentz. Because if you look at the $40 million arms in the league in terms of annual salary, you've got Stafford, Dak, Carr, Allen, Mahomes, Watson, Kyler, Russ, and Rodgers. He's not clearing $40 million a year. It's just not going to happen. They will let him walk. But I do think Daniel Jones has earned between 35 and 32 million a year. I don't think
that's
40 million.
Hit.
It's the new baseline for an average starter.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the thing. And the thing is, I've said this about every deal from last free agency to today. The NFL is going to get more money. The NFL's TV deal is going to be up in the next couple of years. There's going to be even more money getting funneled into these organizations. So any deal that's signed today is better off tomorrow. Like went from saying
Amazon paid how much money for Thursday Night Football, YouTube
TV
just
billions,
just billions for Sunday tickets. So,
like Jared Goff is getting paid 33.5. 2.5 years ago, he was the most untradeable contract in sports. But now he's a bargain. He's relatively a bargain for a team that is looking to improve. Obviously, you signed the wrong guy, like a Carson Wentz. It's going to be an absolute hamper to your organization. But even the contract of Derek Carr isn't untradeable. Like the cap is only going to go up, and I know that's crazy because like nothing's guaranteed. The NFL is guaranteed. The NFL is not going away. The salary cap is not going to shrink. The NFL is as American as apple pie. This sport is intertwined with like capitalism. There's no way for the price to go down at this point. It would have to just absolutely collapse. Like every owner pulls out, all the players go on strike, everybody's just gone, like the blip from Avengers Endgame. That would have to be the scenario for the NFL to go away. But yeah, I think Daniel Jones would be great. I'd pay him $35 a year at this point, based upon everybody else's contracts. I'm of the adage: any contract you sign within reason is going to be a good deal under the current scale of NFL contracts. The Mike Williams deal, it's going to look better this offseason than it did last offseason because rent's due and the price is always going up. It's the nature of pro sports. There's no rhyme or reason for why they get paid so much. Obviously, they put their bodies through a tremendous amount of like punishment, but these raises, they're just matriculating at an absolutely insane level. We saw it in the NBA with 2016. It's how Kevin Durant became a Golden State Warrior. The money grows and grows and grows. So think of NFL free agency as like, whose line is it anyway? The contracts are made up and the money doesn't matter unless the player sucks. Looking at you, Russ. But that's where we're at. That's genuinely where we're at. And then I think it's going to get more interesting with the 2020 guys getting their deals because Saquon's not resetting the market. Daniel Jones is not resetting the market. Saquon even came out himself. He had a healthy year after a couple years of being banged up. He's not looking to reset the running back market. I think Saquon's going to try and get $10 million a year at peak, and he might ask for $8 million for like 4 years. He's going to look for security and a deal with a team that he can succeed on. I hope that's the Giants for their sake. But if you're looking for like record deals, it's going to be with Joe Burrow's going to get a bag. Herbert should be extended as soon as possible. Justin Jefferson will reset the market. But these older guys on their second contracts, the biggest money is going to come for the guys that are younger and just piling it onto the back half. Like it's the extensions, not the new deals. Anyone that's hitting unrestricted free agency will either be too old at their respective position to command money or not good enough to have commanded it to begin with, if that makes sense. Like I don't see a fifth-year option quarterback getting $500 million because they would have gotten it in year 3 or year 4.
Yeah, I mean, kind of hit it on the head for that one. 2 guys owed a lot of money. One has a contract, the other one not yet. But Burrow and Mahomes. That's next week.
Burrow and Allen. Joshua.
Man. For all the shit that the media gives the Dallas Cowboys, it's time to put it on the Bills.
I'm right there with you, buddy. I'm a Chargers fan. It's always
I get it. I get it. Actually, no. Have the Bills made an AFC championship game?
Nope. Divisional loss 3 straight years.
So there you go. What to compare these two teams? Buffalo has the better quarterback. Buffalo.
That's a toss-up right now. I don't know if Josh Allen's better than Joe Burrow.
No. I'm talking about Dallas.
Okay.
Comparing two
gotcha.
teams that deserve a shit ton of flack.
Gotcha.
Bills have the better quarterback. They have the better fan base. Definitely. Up until this year, the Bills have had a much better defense. Dallas was pretty much all elite last year, and then played a good playoffs for sure, but kind of tailed off towards the end of the season. But the Bills I think everyone can agree that the Buffalo Bills are an all-around better team than the Dallas Cowboys.
I was wrong. They did make the AFC title game in 2020. Not to cut you off, just
okay.
Had to redact my previous
Maybe
statement.
not as much flack as Dallas because Dallas is extending their record that we'll get into. But for a team that lost 4 straight Super Bowls and is just looking to get there and get the win, and Josh Allen is supposed to be right there with Mahomes and this and that, they've come up short every single time. So at what point do they start getting as much flack as we do? And you could say all you want. Oh, well, they don't say it's their year every year. Fuck off with that shit. Every single fan base wants their team to win the Super Bowl every year and thinks this year is the year. Am I wrong? Like, what do you go into the season being like, if we can make the playoffs with Brandon Staley, we'd be fine. You were ready to push your team into the Super Bowl the way you guys were playing. Like, I'm not giving you flack, but I'm just saying, to say that the Dallas Cowboy fans are like, oh, well, you say every year is your year. Well, yeah, so should every other fan base. I would hope so that every year is our fucking year. That's the way sports works.
The loss ain't so. The thing about this offseason previously that I think is understated is every single competitive team effectively got better. Sans the Dallas Cowboys losing Amari Cooper, I still don't fully understand that trade. I understand the money behind it, and I get that. But betting on Michael Gallup after the injury, it's aged badly for your team, Austin. But most contenders got better. The Chiefs moved Tyreek Hill, and yes, they got worse because Tyreek Hill's insanely good. They got so much better on defense out of that deal. They got Karlaftis. They got fucking Trent McDuffie. They added Juju in free agency. Contenders reloaded in a way that I don't think a lot of people see on a yearly basis. The Chargers won the offseason. They had an incredible free agency period. The Bengals got La'el Collins. The Bills added Von Miller, who was the cornerstone of that Rams defense outside of Aaron Donald in that championship run. So I'm with you with the whole Bills thing. The Bills came into this year with high hopes. Their defense had greatly improved. They didn't have Tre'Davious White for a long portion of the year. He finally came back. But whenever Von Miller tore his ACL, I thought their season was capped at around the divisional round, maybe AFC championship, because their defense sucked. They were missing Micah Hyde for most of the year. DeMar Hamlin went down, which is tragic, and I pray for the man every day. But this Bills team cannot just be Josh. And they were banking on him being Superman 2 years in a row. He was not. This is his worst postseason since 2019. The guy threw 3 touchdowns and 3 picks. His completion percentage was under 60%. And he got sacked 8 times. Josh Allen did not play like Josh Allen. And it showed. To put it bluntly, I think Trevor Lawrence arguably had a better postseason than Josh Allen this year. Given circumstances, given the talent on the team, given coaching. And Lawrence threw four interceptions and a half. The Bills disappointed, and I don't think we can put the blame on everyone or one individual, but I think it's due for everybody. I think McDermott has to answer these questions. I think Josh Allen has to get more help, but how much more help can you get? And if you were concerned about the Bills during the season, as soon as they rang Cole Beasley's phone number, whenever he was in his studio recording his 4th rap album, that's when the fire should have started. There was smoke for weeks with this team.
Oh, I thought the fire started with Cole Beasley's album.
Before the DeMar Hamlin injury took place, because for me, the Bengals, regardless of what you feel about them, and I'm going to walk back my Zach Taylor sucks take because I suck for even thinking that right now. Zach Taylor's not a bad coach. I spoke too soon on the guy. He has done something with his coordinators and personnel that just wins. And you could put the crux of that on Joe Burrow and the talent, but he's the guy he's the guy that hired the staffs. He's the guy that works with these guys every day. So Zach Taylor, congratulations. It's time for me to give you your flowers, regardless of how the AFC Championship game pans out. But the Bengals were going to run Buffalo out of the building in week 16, 17, whatever it was. Like that, in my personal opinion. I did not see Buffalo keeping pace in that game. Cincinnati's offense is too good at full strength, regardless of how the offensive line shakes out. So it sucks for Buffalo's season to end this way. They went through a whole lot this year. Dawson Knox's brother passed away, sadly. The DeMar Hamlin injury, Tre'Davious White being out, Micah Hyde being out. This team was beaten up, and they played to the best of their abilities. But they have to figure something out in the offseason. Josh Allen cannot be the leading rusher. We've said this 3 years straight. Stephon Diggs cannot be the only pass catcher you're counting upon because Gabe Davis is not it. To anybody that drafted him in fantasy, congratulations in week 1, whenever you started him and he was passable. Outside of that, he's garbage. Gabe Davis is a wide receiver 3 or 4 on a competent NFL team. His hands are not good enough, and athletically, he's good, but I'm not comfortable with him being my wide receiver 2 if I'm looking to make the Super Bowl. Because if Gabe Davis isn't going to make you pay, Stephon Diggs is getting double teamed. And this team has a lot of money committed to a lot of places, and they could stand to actually lose some key pieces. If I'm correct, Jordan Poyer and Roger Saffold are both free agents along with Tremaine Edmonds and Jordan Phillips. This team could lose key pieces. And now it's going to be on the front office to get creative with now Allen being on the big money deal to reinvent their defense and get younger in spots because their window, it's not closed, but if they have another year like this, it's going to be far closer to being closed than it really is being opened. Because I'm not convinced that they can beat the Chiefs. And at this point, I wouldn't pause to say they can't beat the Bengals. They are right now the number 3 team in the AFC, and I think being third is not a good place to be. Because you have 4 or 5 teams clawing at the chance to unseat you. And with all the money they have tied up, I just don't see how they make those changes. It's going to have to take insane amounts of creativity or just players developing in a way that I don't expect. So the ball's in Buffalo's court, but they got to figure it out now. Von Miller is one of the highest paid defensive line or edge rushers in football. Stephon Diggs is on a record-setting contract whenever he signed it. Josh Allen is a $40 million man. If McDermott can't figure it out, they're going to find somebody that can. And if they can't get the turnovers down, I'm concerned next year. Because whenever Daboll was there, Allen ascended. And Allen didn't have him this year, and he could not hold on to the ball. Led the league in turnovers. If that's a trend, I can't bet on their upside. Because it's easy to beat up on an AFC East whenever you're turning the ball over because the Jets exist and Zach Wilson quarterback for them almost half the time. Tua wasn't on the field for half the time, and Mac Jones didn't have a receiver outside of Jacoby Myers that I trusted. But whenever the playoffs come around, everybody's a winning team unless the NFC South is included. But my point stands. Like, in the playoffs, you have to protect the ball. The Bills lost the turnover battle in this game. The Jags are the only team I've seen lose a turnover battle by 5 and win a playoff game. If you can't hold on to the ball, odds are you're going to have a tough time winning, especially the deeper in the playoffs you get. I'm talking a lot, man. I apologize. That week off, it's just got me all bottled up.
For the umpteenth
Like,
year in a row, Josh Allen can't lead his team in rushing every single game and expect to win. You can't
I'm
have
just not gonna.
us, huh?
I'm not gonna say it next year. I'm not gonna say it. I'll create a button on my stream deck, and I'll just be like, Josh Allen can't be the leading rusher. I'm not saying it anymore. I can't. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. You fool me thrice, I can't get fooled again. Point blank and period. Buffalo, figure it out. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Dawson Knox is not Travis Kelce. He cannot lead in receiving for a winning game.
Hayden Hurst, solid pickup for the Bengals. If you're looking to win now in the AFC, there's not a better blueprint than the Cincinnati Bengals. They were never really that. They had like 1 or 2 years where they were god awful, and then they got Jamar Chase because Joe Burrow's knee went kaput his rookie year. But
can you
rebuild,
explain to me that your class with Herbert, Tua, Burrow, Hurts, they can be extended after this season?
Yeah,
but why? Why would you?
Well, the extensions don't kick in until after their rookie deals end out. I'm pretty sure. Like the Mahomes deal.
I'm just not thinking straight. Okay. Okay.
I'm pretty sure they're extensions. So you're basically amending years onto the back half of their rookie scale. So essentially, Burrow would finish out
4 years.
There's a 5th-year option. So what I would assume is, you know how arbitration works in baseball, where you can sign pre-arb deals and basically pay them more those last years of arbitration to save on the back end. If they were to extend Burrow, it would be a number that I would say is Mahomes got what, 10 for like $500 million. I'd say you give Burrow 8 years for like 400 something. I would assume he gets his base rate with a massive signing bonus the next 2 years. So like 10 million a year, and then it skyrockets and the signing bonus is less. The NFL's contracts are fluid. You can work them to be whatever you want. Deshaun Watson made like hundreds of thousands of dollars. They converted the rest of it into a signing bonus. So they didn't have to worry about him and his suspension. So the NFL is extremely creative. It's why the Rams were able to do what they did for the last 4 or 5 years. If it's signing bonus, it doesn't count towards the cap, if I'm correct. If you're a cash fluid franchise, you can pay people straight up as opposed to
That's the Saints.
Over lifespans. Yeah, exactly.
That's the Saints about signing bonuses and backloading contracts.
But every quarterback out of the 2020 class, give them blank checks. Tua is the asterisk, and Jalen to a certain extent. Jalen, I'd give him big money over like 4 or 5 years. But Herbert and Burrow, just give me a 10-year, name your price. Because there's the only thing worse than like there's nothing worse than not having your quarterback. And if you have him and you lose him, there's nothing worse than that. So contracts all age badly at the end. So just get your guy and lock him in. Live with the consequence.
So the Bills had 63 rushing yards in a snow game where you shouldn't be able to throw the ball as much.
Pretty bad. Pretty bad.
Only 18 first downs compared to the Bengals 30. They didn't have a first down in the first quarter, I think. They were 4 for 12 on third down. They were 2 for 3 on fourth down. They ran 9 less plays. They punted 2 more times. They had 51 more penalty yards, and they turned the ball over 1 more time than the Bengals did. 1 to an entire 0 for the Bengals. The Bengals are just set up to keep doing this over and over. The Chiefs are set up to keep doing this over and over. We could see Bills and Chiefs for the next 30 years in the AFC Championship game. I'm exaggerating, but the Bills and Chiefs are just so much further better than the Bills at this point.
Bengals and Chiefs?
Yes, the Bengals and Chiefs are so far ahead the Bills at this point. It's ridiculous. Josh Allen is not in the same conversation as Patrick Mahomes. It has been. It still is.
It was never
Mahomes, and then everybody else. Burrow is slowly inching up with every passing day. He gets better and better.
Players are fighting for the second spot at quarterback, and that's fine. I'm sure if I were older, that's how I would have felt about Manning for a bulk of his prime. because Brady won more than Manning, but I don't think anybody denied Manning's talent. That's Mahomes. Mahomes could not win another Super Bowl for the next 10 years. Based upon what he does on the field every Sunday, he's intangibly the best quarterback. He has the numbers, he has MVPs, rings, does it with whoever is lined up on the outside. There's not a single like impervious like player to criticism, but I feel like if you're criticizing Mahomes outside of maybe him just making mistakes here and there, like it's insane. You are just trying to poke holes because
I mean, his wife is kind of obnoxious, but that's about it.
like this is coming from a Chargers fan. I don't like the Chiefs, but I respect the hell out of Patrick Mahomes. He is super good. Now, he's not good. He's great. He's elite. It's so frustrating. And that's why I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
The Chiefs win the Super Bowl. That's great. He gets another MVP, gets another bowl out of the way. Maybe he can relax, finally take a break. He never. Like, it's terrifying how good he is.
And also, I just got to get this out of the way. This whole shit about refunds for the Atlanta game. Like, good Lord, it is the most cringe shit I have heard out of the Bengals for weeks. Like, they don't sell AFC Championship game tickets in multiple spots for multiple teams. It like
the way
they sold tickets in Atlanta. Like, yeah, you also sold tickets. The Chiefs also sold tickets. That's kind of how a business works. Like, it's just
the
cringe.
way the NFL fucking show ponied the statistics from the pre-sale was a little ridiculous. Like, I was having conversations with you. I was like, if some of these calls don't go the right way and the Bengals end up somehow finding a way to lose this game, it's going to look fishy. The NFL was stroking itself all week with this idea of the neutral site AFC Championship and how they were going to Rose Bowl the shit and have half of it be Chiefs fans and half of it be Bills fans. Just, you know what? Why don't we just, take half of it and just make the Bills win a fucking playoff game? Oh, wait, I forgot. We can't make that happen. I think Joe Burrow's justified in saying better get those refunds ready because they should. And as cool as the neutral site would have been, I felt it was just kind of weird the way that it was all reported. Like Roger Goodell was patting his own back. It's like, shut the hell up, Roger. Like, I get it.
It's just like, to me, we get that every playoff team has its like story and this and that. Like the Eagles are the team in the NFC, the Niners with Brock Purdy, and like with the Chiefs, like Mahomes without Tyreek Hill, and the Bengals' motivation is that they sold tickets to a neutral site game. Like that's all you got for me. Like I don't know.
The Bengals, out of everybody in the AFC post Damar Hamlin, in terms of what happened, they were the team that got screwed. They lost any chance they had at the 1 seed. So I think this game wasn't just about the tickets. I think that was just like, since that game got canceled, I think that the Bengals have had bulletin material every week since. I think their entire purpose post that cancellation was to kick Buffalo's ass. Because they were beating Buffalo, and I think they know in their hearts they were going to beat Buffalo. And it's tough to say that Buffalo didn't show up because they've been through a hell of a lot, more than any team I think has this season. And the Chargers lost more war than any other team. The Bills had a season from hell. This Bills team faced adversity. And to get to a divisional round is an accomplishment. It's just, when are they going to make the jump? And that's the thing that's compounding the Bills' loss. They didn't lose by a field goal. It didn't take McPherson kicking from 60 yards in the snow. They just got beat. Josh Allen didn't show up. Stephon Diggs got pissed off and stormed out. Some shit's on fire in Buffalo. And when there's smoke, there's fire. And they need to tighten it up and they need to get better. Because if they don't get better, it's going to be the same thing year in and year out.
All right. The moment we've all been waiting for.
The floor is yours, my friend. I'm going to shut the hell up and just let you know what, dude? Just process it. It's fine. I hate Jerry Jones too.
I told my coworkers, like, I'm surrounded by Niners fans, so it was like a little bit of crap talking, but I don't like to talk a lot of shit, mainly because I don't want to deal with the aftermath.
Smart man.
Even if we win, because then I got to deal with people bitching and complaining. I was not confident going into Tampa Bay. I was less confident going into San Francisco. If we somehow beat San Francisco, I was going to be on top of the world and felt like we could have smoked Philly. That's kind of where I was at. I went to this game with low expectations because I've kind of processed everything now, and this is where I stand as a Dallas Cowboys fan. I'm not going anywhere. It is a cowardice way to leave a fan base just simply because they're not winning. If they are actively doing stupid shit and tanking all the time and stupid ass trades or this and that, like, yeah, Amari Cooper was a stupid ass trade, but realistically, we haven't done something that stupid in a little while in terms of trading. Contract extensions for Zeke and shit like that, pretty dumb in hindsight now. But at the time, Zeke was a top running back and putting up numbers. But to me, just like giving up on a team and jumping fan bases feels like a coward's way to me. And if I have to die without any Super Bowl titles, then so be it. The Dallas Cowboys will never get past the divisional round as long as Jerry Jones is at the top. And I don't think the Dallas Cowboys can get past the divisional round with Dak Prescott as their quarterback. Dak Prescott is probably a top 15 quarterback. Probably between the 15 and 13 range. Maybe 12 at best.
Go ahead.
We'll never know what 2020 Dak Prescott was going to be because that is the best flash of Dak Prescott we've ever seen. When he first started, he never turned the ball over. This season, he turned the ball over at an exorbitant rate. Granted, some of them were just really bad luck and no playmaker type of moves, drops into interceptions. Shit happens, but on the stat sheet, he has interceptions. This is the first time in multiple years we've had solid defenses. If Tony Romo had these defenses, we probably would have seen a championship game by now. Because Tony Romo put up numbers, but because he couldn't get the final drive after putting up 27 points, he was a choker. That's how these things work. But Tony Romo was always playing from behind. Dak Prescott doesn't have to play from behind a lot. Generally, he gets to play even the past couple of years. He's been hurt, but in the games he's played in, they're either ahead or the game is close. He's not constantly playing from behind like Romo had to. But Dak Prescott is really just in the same spot that Kirk Cousins is. They're good quarterbacks, but they're not good enough. Most of these teams left, outside of the 49ers, whatever you want to say about Brock Purdy, my man 7 games in, have elite talent at quarterback. Because we are long the days of Trent Dilfer winning Super Bowls. Having a solid defense is great, don't get me wrong. But at this point, you need an elite caliber quarterback to win the Super Bowl. Stafford was able to do it with a solid defense, but Stafford pretty much gave up his life for that Super Bowl title. I don't think he has anything left in him, to be honest with you. Brady before that, Mahomes before that. It's just kind of how these things work. But the Dallas Cowboys are this obnoxious fan base, the team that everybody likes to clown over and over. We're 12 straight playoff appearances without seeing a championship game. Granted, 18 teams in the NFL have longer Super Bowl droughts than we do, but that's irrelevant apparently. Because I don't know about you, but when I go to the playoffs, I like to win the Super Bowl, not just see a championship game. But this is kind of I give a lot of flack every single year for the past 3 or 4 years since they lost the Super Bowl to the Atlanta Falcons for being mediocre and not getting a top pick and not seemingly improving. Who am I to say we don't do the same shit every year? We go to the only difference between us is we go to the playoff and our draft pick is worse. And we go to the divisional round, get a 25, 26 pick, and we kind of just do the same thing over and over. Who outside of CeeDee Lamb made an impact yesterday? Nobody. There are critical points in the game where you could say Dallas lost the game. The 2 picks, that one's easy. Especially the one before half. It turned our 3 points into San Francisco 3 points. There you go. That's 6. Quick math. The first pick turned into 3 points. Boom, 9. Kevontae Turpin not going outside, but instead of trying to go through to San Francisco players, probably cost us 6.
At least, yeah.
I don't know what he saw, but I think if he bounces outside, he's gone. A sequence of a dropped pick into a defensive holding turned 3 points into 7. That's 4. I've brought up probably 19 points that could have changed the game easily. We lost by 7. Whatever you want to say about the last play of the game, I could not care less. I really don't. I kind of understood where they were going. I think the idea was get the ball to Turpin, have linemen out there block for him, but Turpin was ahead of everybody when the ball was thrown. So it was just a completely fucked play. But we've been down this road before. It's a desperation type play. If it doesn't work, it looks stupid. It's just how these things work. It's always been that way in the NFL. It's not the first time we've seen a stupid play. It's not the last time. But Mike McCarthy is 0-4 against the San Francisco 49ers in his playoff career. Mike McCarthy will always be outcoached when it matters most. But he's not going to lose his job because he gets us to the dance. But we're not good enough to dance with everybody else. We beat the aging Bucks. And granted, yes, I was not confident going to that game. Realistically, we smoked them. We did what we were supposed to do, but we were all skeptical because Tom Brady exists. But what am I supposed to say at this point? We finished the season 13-6. Great record. But I've read this book before, and I know how it ends. And as long as Jerry Jones is making meaningful decisions at the top, I think this is going to be where we are for the next 20 years until the Lord calls his name. We're not trading Dak Prescott.
You can't.
It's almost a $90 million hit to the cap in dead money. We can't tank because we're the Dallas Cowboys. We are the New York Yankees of football. We are expected to win. We will not tank. It's not in Jerry Jones's blood. It's not going to happen. Would I love to tank for Caleb Williams? Maybe. That would sound pretty dope if I do say so myself, if Caleb Williams ends up being what we all think he's going to be. Because Dak Prescott he has great flashes. Don't get me wrong. But to dominate one team and then to look like that the next, I don't care how good the defense is. He lit up a really good Philadelphia defense with T.Y. Hilton on 3rd and 36. I don't know what to say at this point. We are just a little bit better than mediocre, but we're never good enough to see the end.
Man, at least you guys got a playoff this year. At the end of the game, that's the first thing I thought whenever they lined up. I was like, hey, man, it could have been worse. It's the tale of Sisyphus. You keep pushing this ball up the hill only for it to roll back down, and you're starting at the same spot next year. If this team doesn't get rid of Mike McCarthy, do you expect a different result? You can't get off Zeke. You can't get off of Mike McCarthy. You can hope you can get another playmaker in the draft this year, because I think you are desperately needing another receiver. Even if Michael Gallup can come back to what he was before he got hurt next year, I'm not betting on that being a competent wide receiver too. I just don't think alongside CeeDee Lamb, you can count on him week by week to be the guy that Dak Prescott needs to be effective. Can you count on Dak Prescott to not regress again? Because you mentioned Kirk Cousins in this discussion. 12 months ago, completely agree. Dak Prescott has been Kirk Cousins for the majority of his career. Kirk Cousins is Derek Carr now. Kirk has elevated, Carr has regressed, and Dak alongside Carr has also regressed. As of right now, I view Derek Carr and Dak Prescott in very similar lights, and they're paid extremely similar. And their teams for lack of a better term, suffer similar fates year in and year out. The Raiders being worse off because Dallas has an all-world defense. You don't have to do much to the defense this offseason. You've invested in that. You need to spruce this offense up and get somebody at the top because McCarthy can't be the coach. Like, I know everybody wanted to fire Brandon Staley after the collapse in the wild card round, which I guess was justifiable. But who's really going to be better in that situation? Outside of Sean Payton, where you're going to have to trade draft capital? If everyone is so high and mighty on Sean Payton, Austin, why don't the Cowboys get him? Why doesn't Dallas go after Sean Payton? He wants
I do not think Dallas would pay the price.
Jerry Jones has paid the price far too often on terrible turnouts. My biggest thing about Jerry Jones is this dude is worth so much money and he talks so much shit. Put your money where your mouth is. If you care about the team and you care about winning, do it. It's not like he's cash poor. It's not like Jerry Jones is struggling. At this point with this team, the only way you're going to improve is by adding weapons on offense or fixing head coach. And you don't want Hackett. Do you want any of the coordinators that are getting fired? Do you want a quarterback coach from a quarterback guru-shaped team? Because that's the biggest thing about the whole fire Staley thing. It's like, you got to give Herbert somebody that can like actually help the offense. I hope the Chargers get their coordinator and it actually helps Herbert. But for the price, it doesn't make sense for the Chargers. For the Cowboys, the price makes sense. The price is baked in. You've given money to everyone. Might as well fully invest and give something to a coach. Because with your current team, your window's closed with Mike McCarthy. There's no getting better. You can add a receiver, and that's great. Philly's better. The Giants could be better. And the Commanders, who knows? The NFC East is super weird, but currently you are capped out under Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy.
I want Kellen Moore to get a head coaching job so bad just so he gets off my team.
Exactly.
I'm just so tired. Somebody said today, and it kind of resonated with me, that like maybe Dak Prescott's just a gunslinger.
Yep.
And maybe he is. But do we know like that with the play calling?
Nope.
I would have to pull up the stats, but it seems like we're one of the most conservative football teams when it comes to throwing the ball. We talked about Herbert barely throwing downfield this season. That's what it felt like with Dak this season too. And Dak has the arm strength and hits some deep ass throws, but we're constantly running these screens and hitting Dalton Schultz and this and that. If he's a gunslinger, then just fucking go for it. If you throw a pick 40 yards down the field, oh, well, your defense is all world anyways. And sometimes it works out and you throw for 4 touchdowns and 28 points is enough to win the game. So just go for it.
The reason why McCarthy, everyone outside of Dan Quinn should not be on the staff. Personally, the assistants maybe can stay. Special teams coordinators, I'm not that educated about the Dallas Cowboys. We know who Kellen Moore is. We've known who Mike McCarthy is. Jones needs to clear house. The only thing he can do besides selling the team right now that's going to help you is get rid of Mike McCarthy and get rid of Kellen Moore. I'm going to read you a list of names of quarterbacks that had more passing attempts this season than your Dak Prescott. Are you ready?
I guess. Mainly
so
he missed
I'll start
5
off
games.
Even in missing 5 games, Tua Tagovailoa had more passing attempts than Dak Prescott. Matt Ryan had more passing attempts than Dak Prescott.
That hurts.
Davis Mills had more passing attempts than Dak Prescott.
That tracks. I can understand
Daniel
that.
Jones, Jalen Hurts, Mac Jones. I get he missed 5 games, but regardless, this is not something new. Dak does not throw the ball. You guys do not let him throw the ball. He gets paid $40 million a year to hand the ball off to someone that's been washed since he got suspended last. This team makes no sense. He's only topped over 500 attempts 3 times in his career. He was going to shatter it the year he broke his ankle. But for a guy that you're investing so much money in, even in missing 3 games or 5 games, him not reaching 400 attempts is criminal. I get it. You want to protect him. You want him to not turn the ball over.
Since you have his stats up, can you read me his 2020 stats?
His 2020 stats, in 5 games, he threw for 1856 with a 68% completion, 222 attempts, 4 interceptions, 9 touchdowns. He was averaging 371 yards a game. That is by far his best output. He's only averaged 300 plus the year prior. Everything else is under 3.
Granted, he doesn't have the same playmakers that he did in 2020. He mainly just had CD. But if you could find that Dak, 4 picks sucks, but I think we went 2-3 in those games. Maybe 3-2. Yeah, see, 2-3. Because our defense was getting blown out, and we don't have that same defense anymore. Our defense is generally keeping most opponents under 20, 21 points. And if Dak is throwing 9 touchdowns in 5 games and over almost 400 yards a game, we're putting up 4 touchdowns a game. Just about. Gunslinging the ball. And most of the time, those interceptions are deep balls, and don't put your defense in the worst position in the world. The defense got put in shitty situations last night and really only gave up 3 most of the time in those shitty situations.
Lamar Jackson, this is the litmus test. Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott both missed 5 games this season. Lamar threw, let's say, he threw 68 less passes than Dak on the year. Dak's not giving you what Lamar can on the ground. It's not even close.
No.
Dak Prescott has to throw the ball 500 plus times per year. And granted, he would have hit that number this year, arguably in those 5 games. But honestly, if I'm the Cowboys and I'm paying the dude $400 million or $40 million a year.
$40?
$40 million per year. I wish it was $40. Man, that'd be a hell of a deal. But he has to have more pass attempts. Geno Smith cannot be outpassing him. Like, I want to see Dak in the upper 5s, lower 6s. Because, yes, Herbert didn't throw the ball deep this year because of the personnel in Lombardi, but he threw it 700 times this year. Herbert slang the rock. He threw it for a 68% completion. Dak Prescott hit 66. Make him throw the ball more. Your running backs are good and your line has been serviceable, but this team needs to reevaluate itself. There's a reason why Romo's teams seemed better, because they were moving the ball in better ways. Like, you're not going to beat the best teams in the league if you're not trusting your quarterback. And if you don't trust the guy you're feeding $40 million to a year, why are you rostering him? Why did you sign him? Because I think Dak's worth the money. But under this current scheme, I don't see how the upside will ever be fully realized. He's overachieved every step of the way. But I think the franchise has effectively failed him every other step. They finally got him a defense and they discounted his weapons.
Yep.
They finally have a window and they get a terrible head coach. You go from Jimmy Johnson and Barry Switzer to literally the worst run of head coaches the NFL's probably had in the last 20 years. Like, you had 2 Hall of Famers back to back.
I would say with the exception of Bill Parcells, but that was towards the end of Bill's time.
Exactly.
So, like, I even looked it up. We went Tom Landry for 28 years, Jimmy Johnson for 5, and how he only has 5 makes me sick.
Jimmy Johnson should still be coaching this team, essentially. That's how good he was.
He really should be.
Yeah, he should have been like a Mike Tomlin type. Like, just give him a blank check every extension he wants until he retires.
And then you go into Barry Switzer, who had 4 seasons, won a Super Bowl. All that matters. Then you go to Dan Gailey. Okay, yeah, right. You go to Dave Campo, who went 15-33 in his tenure. You go to Bill Parcells, who went 34-30 during his time. So, but towards the end of his time, and once that team started sucking, he was done. Into Wade Phillips, into Jason Garrett, into Mike McCarthy. We got Wade Phillips in 2007. It has been mediocre head coaching since 2007. We are at year 18 of having mediocre head coaching and our coach getting outclassed when it matters the most. Wade Phillips is a solid defensive mind. Don't get me wrong. But he was not a head coach. Don't get me started on Jason Garrett. I'm not even going to try. 8-8, baby. I would have just give me Jeff Fisher at that point. At least I know 7-9 is coming all the time. Yes,
sir. Consistency is key. It's just, I'm not going to take anything away from the 49ers. This was my favorite game of the playoffs so far. This was a chess match, and DeMeco Ryans and the Niners defense is just that good. Fred Warner at times was covering CeeDee Lamb like a corner. Like, this Niners defense is the truth. They are a Jaquiski Tart interception that was dropped away from being the champions last year, and I think they probably win it this year unless Mahomes is fully healthy or the Bengals just catch fire. Or Brock Purdy finally comes back to earth a little bit, but the Niners executed the game plan. The team that made the mistakes was going to lose this game, regardless of which side it was. You had a rookie quarterback going into the biggest game of his life, and Dak Prescott playing the biggest game of his life. So it sucks the way that it turned out for Cowboys fans, but it's nothing to hang your hat on outside of like Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, and the coaching staff. Like, the fans can't help it. You didn't sign the contracts. You didn't coach the players. If Cowboys fans had it their way, who knows? You might win the fucking game. Who knows? But the Cowboys had a really good season. Any other season they win their division. Nick Sirianni and them Eagles with Howie Roseman's help just created an absolute murder squad. That will be fun to watch how it ages. But Dallas, out of all the teams eliminated this week, feels the most capped out. And there's definitive ways to improve, but I don't think it's personnel related. Outside of maybe adding a running back that's going to be cheaper and maybe a receiver out of the draft. But outside of that, I don't see many trades you can make. I don't see many signings in free agency that are going to be direct additions that help you. Coaching is the biggest thing. I don't see how McCarthy can keep the job. Unlike Staley's into year 4 next year. He has a winning record. Brandon Staley it's going to be year 3 for Staley. He took a team that had the number 6 pick the year before he came into town, and then he coaches them up. They get a top 11 pick. They get Rashawn Slater. His first year, they overachieved, 9-8. Next year, they make the playoffs at 10-7. There's progression here. There was progression under Mike McCarthy, if you would like to call it that, but since 2020, we've been here, give or take. It's flatlining. And I don't know. I'm not counting on there being a blip upward as I am going to say there's going to be a blip downward. Because you went 13 and what this year?
4.
13-4. That is an insanely good record.
12-5.
But
12-5.
Yeah, 12-5. 12 wins is incredibly hard regardless of situation. You guys played in the best division in football. I don't get the upside with McCarthy. I just don't see how anybody can see it.
Let me ask you this, Devin. Can you name a team who has had less head coach than the Dallas Cowboys since 1960? Since 1960, Tom Landry's first year. Granted, Tom Landry might be an outlier. But since 1960, the Dallas Cowboys had 9 head coaches. That's it. The Packers have had 11. Let's see.
Since 1960, I feel like the Steelers have had 2 for the last 20 years, 20 plus years. So they're going to be low on the list. I feel like the Niners, to a certain extent, I don't know. Then Bill Walsh years lasted forever.
No, the Niners went through hell in the 2000s.
They did. They did go through hell.
So let's see. Since 1960.
Stat Muse, here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Pittsburgh Steelers only have 6. And that might be the only team you could find. But here's my point. The Steelers have 6 Super Bowls, so that's more than almost anybody else, not named the New England Patriots. You would think a team, and this might almost be shitting on the Steelers at this point, but you would think a team with only 9 head coaches in their time and who held on to a coach for 10 years in Jason Garrett would have probably won a Super Bowl in the past 27 years. You would really think so, the way we hang on to personnel. But Jerry Jones has become so accustomed to mediocrity and just, sorry, Dallas fans. Sorry, you're a fucking idiot. Is that where we're going to go? You're going to stick by your boy because he can't out coach Kyle Shanahan. And that's not a crack on Kyle Shanahan.
The problem that I find with it is that Jerry likes it to be about Jerry. And I know that's like a cop-out, but Jerry Jones likes He likes to be the one that's in charge. He likes the one to get. He's the one that likes to get the credit, and that's not how you win football. I
That's the reason
think
why Jimmy
Jerry's
Johnson's
afraid.
gone.
That's why I think the Sean Payton thing would be cool and it would make sense. But I don't think Jerry's ego would let that happen. Because if Sean Payton coached the team and in the Super Bowl, it's going to be about Sean Payton. It won't be about Jerry. There's a reason why Stephen Jones is still the GM. Because if you have been at your job for 15 plus years and you haven't accomplished what your goal is at the job, you probably don't have that job. But if your dad's your boss, it helps a lot. So,
and the thing is, if Jimmy Johnson kind of just gets what he wants, we probably are in the same spot the Steelers and the Patriots are with 6 Super Bowls. We may even have 7 or 8 because Jimmy Johnson had the team of the 90s, of the early 90s and late 80s. That team was insane, and so are the Niners. There's a reason why they met so much in the playoffs. There's a reason why they've met 9 fucking times in the playoffs. But Jimmy only got 5 seasons. He went 44-36, but he went 7-1 in the playoffs.
Yep.
7-1. What else do I have to say? I don't. The Cowboys are probably the winningest like playoff team in history if Jimmy Johnson gets to hang around. And maybe I'm being a little biased, but what I'm trying to say is Jerry Jones has fucked this team for the past 27 years. It's just, and he's going to fuck it for 27 more if he makes it that long. As long as Jerry Jones is alive and making meaningful decisions. And honestly, as long as Stephen Jones is making meaningful decisions, I am going to be in this seat 365 days from now telling you the same shit. Because we'll probably be in the wild card next season, or at least on the bubble. And we'll finish with a mediocre record. And we'll either get knocked out or be wondering why we didn't make the playoffs.
Yep, the definition of insanity is, if I'm correct, it's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And as a Chargers fan,
in this team,
yeah, as a Chargers fan, I feel that in my bones sometimes. But at least for the Chargers, we're not afraid of change. I think over the last 10 years, we've been open to change. But like you said, Jerry Jones sticks to his guns. And I think they've been firing blanks for far too long. I think the only way you shake this team up and help the ceiling is by a head coaching change. And is it justified to fire a guy after 12 wins? Most cases, not at all. In this case, your window is shorter than it's been since Dak got drafted. He's on the new deal. Your money's tighter than ever. And we know what Mike can get out of the team, and there's no point in wasting valid years of a guy's prime to try and see if Mike can figure it out. There's no point in waiting. I'd much rather give them new coordinators, give them a new offense, and let that ride. Give that 2 or 3 years. Because if Dak Prescott's career becomes the story of Mike McCarthy wasting another quarterback's prime, I wouldn't be surprised. Because if the Packers got off of Mike McCarthy sooner, you think Rodgers might have another Super Bowl? I don't think it's out of the question. His entire career, he's been viewed as this guy that holds players back. He held back Rodgers, and now he's holding back Dak. And it sucks because I think he's not a terrible head coach. I compared him to Sean Payton a little bit earlier, and that was me just trying to defend Staley to a certain extent. I'm happy with Staley as the coach, but teams spend too much time coddling bad coaches. It happened with Kingsbury. It's happening with McDaniels.
Harbaugh twice in a row, right?
Yeah.
This is why he's 0-4 against the Niners in the playoffs. He got dominated by Jim Harbaugh 2 years in a row, and now he gets slapped around by Kyle Shanahan 2 years in a row.
Well, if we want to be honest, the way that you beat, like, look at the Rams. Kyle Shanahan owned them. He's owned them for a while, but the Rams made a choice. The Rams made a choice, and they made a change. And Matthew Stafford was the piece that helped them exercise the demons. The Cowboys don't have the facilities or the ability to trade Dak Prescott and get a better quarterback. You can't exercise your demons by upgrading the roster. You're capped out there. You can change the head coach. That is one thing that you have direct control of. Jerry Jones can pick the next guy for all he cares. He has direct control of that. But to sit on his hands and say, "Well, Mike, you're our guy. Hopefully, you can do something different." It's negligence. It's just like it's just like you can do something. Why not do it? Jerry Jones has been around long enough to know when something is working. He watched Jimmy Johnson carry his teams. Granted, insanely talented rosters. Those teams in the 90s were freaking stupid. But he watched Jimmy Johnson do it. He saw greatness. He lived it. He's reaped the spoils of those Super Bowls for the last 25 years. You think he'd want to win? But that's just me.
Yeah, if next season we go into the same four of Dak, McCarthy, Moore, and Quinn, and honestly, I don't really put any of this on Dan Quinn at this point. But honestly, if we go into this with Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore, I will have no expectations of going any further than we did this year, and probably going to be worse. There's no hope at this point. The vicious cycle that people make fun of is like, oh, the Cowboys start winning, give us hope, make the playoffs, choke in the playoffs. You are here. Like at this point, why are they going to give us hope if they're not going to change anything? As if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, you're watching this, be right there with me. Like I love this team more than anything. Don't get me wrong, but like I'm a huge Texas Ranger fan. They're fucking going for it. Like they've changed everything because they've sucked for 6 years straight. They changed their GM, they changed their manager, they went out and bought talent. And granted, baseball is vastly different than football. But my point is they saw a problem and they made massive changes because they knew they needed to. The Dallas Cowboys don't see problems when they're right in their face. And they're not making active changes to make anything better. The Giants got Dable. The Jets got Robert Saleh. Howie Roseman, I'm not going to say got Nick Sirianni, but he built a fucking roster. He went out and built a roster. He made trades that mattered outside of the Robert Quinn trade. That one hasn't really impacted. But needless to say, you just look around the league and see when somebody has a problem, they change it. Dan Campbell made a change at some point mid-season and turned his Lions team into almost a playoff team. The Dolphins made a change for an offensive mind and now they did make the playoffs. And they almost beat the Bills with Skylar Thompson. I could go on this for hours.
And the Dolphins fired a good NFL head coach in Brian Flores. Yeah. So
but they saw a problem and they fixed it to an extent.
The grass can be greener. There are coaches coming in and out of the woodwork year in and year out. Every coordinator under a good quarterback is getting a job. So the time is now. I'm interested to see how the championship games go. I'm excited to talk about those next week, but I got nothing left on Cowboys Niners. Purdy played the way he should have. Your best bet was for him to make mistakes. And if Purdy doesn't make mistakes, this Niners team feels bulletproof.
Yep. He made a few, but we didn't capitalize on them when it mattered the most. A dropped pick.
Yeah.
Giving the ball away. Trayvon Diggs was half a second too late on George Kittle because I think if Diggs hits Kittle during that whole process, obviously it's an easy incomplete, but Diggs was just too late. There's pivotal points in the game where half a second or just paying more attention changes the game. And obviously you could say that about any NFL football game. But when you see this over and over, the way that we finish seasons, it's just the same thing over and over again. So I got it all out.
Well, that's the whole point of this experiment. People listen to us, but it's effectively just therapy. Every Monday coming to you live at 6:30, Austin and Devin just purge their collective consciousness of sports.
Fucking shit, man.
Yeah. Well, at least we can just enjoy the games now that our players.
Can I? Can I enjoy Eagles Niners? So. I don't want either team to win. I'm rooting for whoever comes out of the AFC, and it's not particularly close.
At this point, like I'm not gonna root for Patrick Mahomes, but it's like a rock and a hard place. Like Mahomes already has the Super Bowl. I don't have to argue that Mahomes is like worse than Herbert. If Burrow gets a ring and has 2 Super Bowls before Herbert's even won a playoff game, I'm never gonna live that down. There's just no way in Sam hell. Like there's just Burrow will be the guy of the class forever, and I'll have to live with it. So it's a rock and a hard place. I really don't care. It's gonna be good football all the way around. I'm excited for this weekend. I can't wait to talk more about it on Monday.
I think the Bengals are going to win.
I think everything's pointing towards Cincinnati, and that's why I think the Chiefs have a good shot. Because last year, Kansas City felt like America's pick. And one thing that the NFL has taught me this year is that America's pick doesn't mean shit. It just doesn't matter. But, yeah.
I think the Niners will overcome the Eagles simply on the fact that
they have to. This is Shanahan's best chance to finally solidify himself. Only thing he hasn't done is the Super Bowl. This is the best roster he's going to have because Purdy's playing great. How much better can he play moving forward is my question. Trey Lance is a relative unknown. They have the team right now. They have McCaffrey. Everyone's healthy. Win it now. And then if you win more later, great. But win it now because tomorrow is never promised.
Well, the biggest thing for me is that the Eagles had 268 rushing yards on the Giants. That's not going to happen against San Francisco. They're the best rushing defense in the league. And Hurts didn't have to do a whole lot. I'm sure he's not super hurt, but I'm sure he's still feeling it a little bit. So it's really going to depend on can Jalen Hurts beat him in the air. And he has the weapons to do so. He has the talent to do so. But I think that's what it's going to come down to because I do not think they're going to be able to run the ball against this Niners defense. It's going to be an insane matchup. That rushing defense against that offensive line is going to be nuts. It is Lane Johnson against Nick Bosa. It's going to be sweet. I can't wait. It is going to be a freaking war in the trenches with those two teams. But I think San Francisco is going to edge it out just barely.
Well, I also think San Francisco has something outside of quarterback that Philadelphia doesn't have currently. Because the quarterbacks, they both are relatively inexperienced in this type of situation. Debo, Kittle, Williams, McCaffrey. I don't know about McCaffrey. McCaffrey hasn't gone super deep in the playoffs. But more skill guys and like impact pieces on this Niners team were there in 2019. They've played in the championship games. They were there last year. They've been deep into the playoffs. And while, yes, Jason Kelce was there for the Super Bowl run and a myriad of other names on the Eagles, this team is completely different from that 2017 or 2018 Super Bowl team that beat the Patriots. The Niners have tasted it. The Niners have been there. And the Niners, I just feel, have that edge in terms of experience. And I'm going to pick Kyle Shanahan over Sirianni every day, including Sundays. I just think he's the best coach in football right now. Yeah. The way he can dial it up with regardless of who's calling the play or regardless of who's the signal caller, it matters. It just matters. And as good as A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Goddard are, there's not a better assemblage of talent offensively than the Niners. And there's not a better off-ball linebacker tandem than Warner and Greenlaw. And you add in Trevarius Ward, and you add in Lenore. It's not individual pieces because the Eagles individually, if you piece it out, are a great team. The Niners pieces are just as good, but as a unit, they've done it for longer and they've done it better. They were my pick to probably win the bowl before the season started. I know I had Chargers, Niners, and I'm pretty sure I leaned Chargers. That blew up in my face. But there's a reason why I picked the Niners before the season started. And that was with the assumption that Trey Lance was the starting quarterback. This Niners team was built to win this year. And anything less than that, regardless of the circumstance, is going to be a failure. I feel that. I'm tired too, man. I am tired too.
It was a long weekend, and I was disappointed at the end of it. It's just been. Now I'm going to sit at home with the other 24 fan bases. No, more than that. 20, 28. The other 27 fan bases and be watching other teams play in the championship. But as always, do your thing. Like, comment, subscribe, talk with us because we're tired of talking with ourselves.
My voice is probably like nails on a chalkboard to Austin.
Even if I think your opinion sucks, I'll at least tell you your opinion sucks, and then we can argue, and that's just great.
I appreciate
for sports.
that.
That's just how things work. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. It's all right below Devin. It's not that hard. You can literally hit subscribe and like right now as you're just watching me. Literally below is a thumbs up. Hit the thumbs down for all I care.
Yeah, dude.
Do
Just
something.
voice your opinion. That's the most important part. That's all this is. Bunch of opinions and hot takes.
You want to ball and go hard? I'll give you $5 and come on the show for an hour. I'm kidding. You can come on the show for an hour, but I don't have $5. So
yeah, no.
Don't hold me to that.
Inflation, man, it's crazy.
Inflation. Elon charges me a lot for Twitter Blue. Okay.
Enough. He charges me enough.
Devin, do you have anything else?
Nope. Just thank you to everybody for listening. Sorry about being gone last week. It was a shit show, as they call it, in my workplace. But yeah, everything's covered for this week. So yeah, pleasure talking to everybody. Pleasure getting to do the show with you, Austin. I look forward to next week, and Super Bowl is going to be fun. But just keep your eyes peeled because we're going to get into the fantasy outlook once the season closes, because that's when the fun starts. Free agency, trades, the draft, rankings. It's all coming. We're just going to have that having to come down the pipe as soon as time starts progressing. But it's been a hell of a year, hell of a season, and I look forward to more of it.
Hit him with it.
Peace.
Wasn't ready. Oh.
I